But I think the strategic thinker here is Bibi Netanyahu beyond a doubt. Every time another Revolutionary Guard headquarters or base are bombed, every time another member of the government, civilian or military, is eliminated, the regime gets weaker. You know, I've known Sergei Lavrov for 35 years, and he knows just as well as I do that Iran was trying to get a deliverable nuclear weapons capability and that they were making substantial progress on it. I think that is a perfectly legitimate basis, along with several other reasons, like Iran's continued sponsorship of terror around the world for the U.S. and Israel to take the actions that they're taking now. I've been recommending it myself for over 20 years. That it's Trump behaving like Trump. This is what he does. He doesn't have a strategy. He doesn't have a philosophy. He doesn't do policy the way anybody listening to this program understands the word. And I think it's a political problem for him internationally. It's a political problem for him domestically. The president has to make the case to the American people why this is in their interest to engage in these hostilities. I think the case is plain and can be made very effectively. But right now, that's not happening. And if that communications problem isn't corrected, Trump will have serious domestic political ramifications to face. Well, I think the Israelis know exactly what they're doing. Their premier object is regime change, and it has been for some time. Bibi Netanyahu has been thinking about regime change in Iran longer than I have. And the United States knows that that's Israel's objective, and we are assisting them, as we should. We provided intelligence, which together with Israeli intelligence allowed them to carry out many of the strikes in the opening hours of the campaign, particularly the one that got the supreme leader. So it's pretty hard to argue that regime change isn't certainly one of the objectives of the two-country coalition that's engaged in this. I think Israel shares the other U.S. objectives too, but the key point, the logic behind this is to eliminate the nuclear weapons program, to eliminate Iran's support for terrorism, you have to eliminate the regime in power. If you don't do that, if you simply wound it and diminish its capacities, it will grow back, and in some period of time, we'll be right back where we were before this attack started. Well, I think by dint of total combat capacity, it's the United States. But I think the strategic thinker here is Bibi Netanyahu beyond a doubt. Well, I think the Iranian response is like writing a long suicide note. I think the attacks on the Gulf Arab states, the attack on the British base in Cyprus, certainly other things they've done and could do, like mounting terrorist attacks around the world, in Europe, in the United States, through their terrorist proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, are simply sealing their fate. And I don't know how long it will take. Neither does President Trump. But every time another Revolutionary Guard headquarters or base are bombed, every time another member of the government, civilian or military, is eliminated, the regime gets weaker. And that is the point. That is how the bombing facilitates regime change. The regime begins to crumble at the top. Its leading figures begin to spar with one another because many of them begin to think maybe we're not on the winning side if we stick to the regime. And it gives the opposition courage that the outside world understands how unpopular the regime is inside Iran and how they're willing to stand with the opposition. Well, I think the attacks and the casualties they've caused are unfortunate, but they're really quite minimal. And I think it's a big mistake for Iran to have done this. I think the governments of the Gulf Arab states know full well that the only way to peace and security in the Middle East over a sustained period is for the regime in Tehran to be overthrown. Like everybody else, they'd like to do it with a minimum amount of disturbance. But the disturbance is here, and the question is now, are they going to side with Iran? Or are they going to side with the United States? I think this is pretty clear. Well, Trump will talk to anybody, anytime about anything, and his biggest thrill in life is to make a deal. So sure, they can try, and it wouldn't be untypical of Trump to agree to something. I think that would be a mistake, and I'll just say it one more time. The only way to end the Iranian nuclear and terrorist threats is to eliminate the regime. There's nothing to negotiate about that point.